On the 30th of May, Dutch oil giant Shell again faced off against coastal communities in court. In December 2021, a temporary interdict had prevented Shell from conducting seismic drilling for oil and gas along the Wild Coast, but the conflict is far from over. 6 hours away is the coastal hamlet of Port St Johns, nestled in the Wild Coast, one of the last untouched parts of South Africa. Cameraman Shamil Albertine and I are travelling there with 34-year-old Nqobile Jojo, who grew up in Mtambane, a hillside village surrounding Port St John's second beach, globally renowned as much for its fatal shark attacks and lethal riptides as it is for its breathtaking beauty.
Everything I've done it in this beach. So second beach, some other people can say it's one of the dangerous beaches, but for me, this was my background. It's only 500 meters from my home to here. So I grew up in this place.
Born during apartheid to parents who straddled both the ancient cultural traditions of Western Pondoland and the increasingly urbanized world, Nqobile understands both worlds.
The ocean and humans, they've got a connection, because at the end of the day, this water, it's life, and also there's some beliefs that people, when they need to cleanse themselves and also enjoy themselves and realize that actually they're connecting with nature, they utilize the ocean.
The elder generation, they were very heavily imbued in the old traditional customs, and their spirituality says that their ancestors live in their version of heaven, which is under the water. So consequently, only children were really allowed to splash around in the shallows.
John Costello is a renowned photojournalist and conservationist who introduced us to Nqobile. His personal history is also entwined with the history of the Wild Coast and Port St John's in particular. He was the station commander of the Port St John's National Sea Rescue Institute from 1999 to 2019.
In the pre-independence days, it used to be mostly the white people who came down here on holiday. And all of them had grown up swimming, splashing around in pools. And then with the influx of the indigenous people, the number of drownings increased.
There was lack of information and understanding of the water. So my mother didn't want us to be lifeguards because she didn't know nothing about water. She couldn't swim.
His childhood dream was to become a lifeguard, to embrace the raging waters, to assist his community in overcoming the traditional taboos associated with the ancestral ocean spirits, and to preserve and promote the marine ecosystem.
God has really blessed Port St Johns, because Port St Johns on its own is the only town that have all the four spheres in one place. A river and an ocean, a forest and a mountain in one place. So it's quite an opportunity and a great thing.
In some respects, his dreams have been realized. Today, he is a qualified lifeguard, diver, swimming coach, and marine expert. Together with his peers, he has performed jaw-dropping rescues, sometimes putting his own life at risk.
Just after those incidents, I felt that I don't think this would do, because I once said, no, I won't see myself into the ocean. But understanding that the conditions of our lives, there are no jobs, nothing that can be given to the community. We don't have anything. So the only option, you'd say, in order for me to sustain my family, I must go and work into the ocean.
The need for lifeguards along this coastline is crucial, not only for ecotourism and ocean safety, but to prevent drownings in the rivers and estuaries. There are 10 beaches in Port St John's alone, and that's not counting the surrounding lagoons and the volatile Mzimvubu River.
We need to provide services at each one of those beaches, but then also reaching inland along the rivers with the education, with the survival swimming training, so that we prevent drowning first of all, and then both for the local people and particularly the children that swim in those environments.
Lots of drownings, they normally occur in the communities, whereby people will be going to fetch wood, but suddenly when they enjoy themselves and then someone fell in a river and start drowning. And others, they occur at the ocean, where people, they just come, let's say late in the afternoon, when they come to a second beach and enjoy themselves, when there are no lifeguards. The initiative of trying to educate and also bring that information to people is that they should be at least water smart.
The two provinces really with the highest rate of drowning are KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape. And that's not surprising because they have the most complex water-related environment. So all the rivers, estuaries, dams, canals, and the sea. And we really, need a footprint all along that coast.
The importance of water safety has been driven home by the recent devastating floods in KwaZulu-Natal that spread to the Eastern Cape, ravaging coastal communities, causing death, destroying rural infrastructure and damaging hundreds of homes in Port St Johns alone.
MEC for Social Development and MEC for Human Settlement need to come on board so that they can see what they can do. We pledge that also as the municipality, in whichever process we are going to be with them, we are going to make sure that at least those things are done which belong to the district, the province and also locally.
The local authorities are so concerned about looking after themselves and their roles that they don't really have that degree of consideration for the youths. You don't see any incentive coming down from those who play the role that they should be playing. So these fellows have had to go out and find people to come and teach them and then develop themselves, which is what they've done over the years and done it with a great degree of ability.
We go to schools, we go to communities and educate people. At the end of the day, it's not something that is sustainable because we're not getting so much money, but the little money that we have, we always bring back to the community.
Since 1994, there have been several initiatives by bodies like the South African Maritime Safety Authority aimed at empowering unemployed youth with the skills to participate in the country's marine tourism sector. But these have been unable to provide sustainable employment.
If this government can just give an eye to what we are doing as lifeguards.
If you have a look at the dozens of wonderful youths that run around the country, who unfortunately are not being recognized, and nobody's putting a hand out to help them apart from the odd organization.
Volunteer organizations like the National Sea Rescue Institute have been instrumental in promoting marine safety.
The long-term vision is to create that combination of services and with a drowning prevention focus, so all our water safety and survival swimming education, creating a hub in Port St Johns from which to launch all these other services. So that would be the kind of center for all these operations.
I had a vision of leaving one of the first fully run black NSRI stations in South Africa. And I took this along to all of the people in authority at the time to seek assistance from them. The people in authority should be able to look at and find merits with it and assist to make these dreams a reality. And they failed to do this continuously.
So instead of playing a major role in drowning prevention, ecotourism and marine education, most of Port St Johns Lifeguards have been left high and dry.
The only job that I have in Port St Johns is to be a lifeguard, but I don't get employed at home. We are this generation that we will be like, sometimes we're not operational, or it's like we've got so much anger. The reason why it's because we see politicians, they're not helping. They are literally not helping.
Framing the Mzimvubu River, snaking through Ponderland into the Indian Ocean and flanked by majestic sandstone cliffs, Port St Johns has inherited Pondo tradition, colonialism, apartheid and a bohemian culture. It straddles the crossroads of tradition and transformation.
It's always been a frontier style of town, and with a frontier style of town comes all of the excitement in the world. You know, you can do everything from flying, riding boats out to sea, diving with sharks, watching the people in town, out in the rural areas, getting to explore areas that previously had never been explored.
Port St Johns has no heavy industries and is therefore dependent on its unique biodiversity for its principal revenue stream.
We've got beautiful beaches. So if we can sustain and make sure that we clean them, nothing else. Make sure we give facilities, ablution, just the simple things, you know, and also make sure that whatever we have, let's sustain and conserve.
But although its tourism slogan is the destination of choice, today the Wild Coast bears the scars of neglect. To date, it has been sheltered from the effects of rampant development, thereby maintaining its pristine wilderness. But it is also a place left behind, its paradisal vistas pockmarked by poverty. Bearing the biggest brunt are the elderly, most of whom are dependent on social grants. And the younger generation are tempted to migrate from this idyllic setting to the cities, often into informal settlements on the urban periphery in search of food security, jobs and a brighter future.
If you say destination of choice, make sure that a basic service, give people some water, nothing else. If you give people water, make access roads, and then make sure that create the jobs that are within. You cannot talk about mining, we don't have mining here, but let's invest in tourism.
It's painful because I know how good some of them were at school and the potential they had. But because some had families that could not afford to take them to higher levels.
A former teacher, Mayor Nqobile Jojo, was appointed in 2018 in the middle of the previous mayor's term. Basically, she inherited a mess.
There was turmoil in the municipality because employees had issues that they were raising, issues that dated back in 10 to 15 years back that were not addressed. The municipality had not functioned for almost 2 years.
Port St Johns belongs to the OR Tambo District Municipality, where 65% of the population lives below the breadline, with up to 85% unemployment. There is a dire shortage of bulk services, particularly in the rural areas, like roads, electricity, and a waterborne sewage system. And ironically, Port St Johns is a town surrounded by water, yet with not a drop to drink, particularly for impoverished residents who have to rely on water trucks.
It's very painful because we've got all kinds of waters. We've got rivers, small streams that flow throughout the year, but we don't have water in my village. Plus minus 12, 11 months. When the COVID started, we didn't have water for 2 years. You only get water for 20 minutes and then done. We were told that no, it's because the pump is broken. Now, if you're having a pump that supplies water, and then you're going to tell me that the pump is broken, you wait for 2 to 3 years for a pump.
The municipality had adopted an unfunded budget, which means it was working on a negative. So to have an unfunded budget, that means the projects you have listed, you are not going to be able to do them. So you have communities at the same time who were complaining that a project that was promised in 2010, in 2011, it has not yet been done in 2017 and 2018.
Our leaders in Eastern Cape, they will say, no, this is what we want to do, but they don't do anything. Now the problem is that once it comes toward the elections, they can write beautiful reports that this is the intentions of job creation.
We requested interviews with the Premier of the Eastern Cape, Oscar Mabuyane, and the MEC for Economic Development, Lumgizi Mvoko, but they both declined.
Funding models in government in the Wild Coast are different to, for instance, the Western Cape. They rely mainly on an equitable share distribution, from national government rather than from a rate space in local governments. Their rate space doesn't exist in the Wild Coast, so there are not many people paying rates, and so they don't have that funding base. So it makes the funding model very different, and probably explains some of the reason why they struggle to provide services.
If your assets are not taken care of, you'll continue suffering. Corruption then gets in out of systems that are not in place. So if systems are not in place, then everybody can do what one wants to do and not be noticed.
And a stroll along Second Beach reveals how basic infrastructure for lifeguards, who should be the mainstay of safety on beaches, is derelict.
We're still being not looked after, but we always force and also try to give people that, no, this is quite a job. It's the same as somebody like working in an office, because This is my office, let alone that I'm just on the outside skirts, but this must be respected. Imagine if it's only two of you, somebody went out, who's going to direct another person where to go in, where to come out?
We need to have lifeguards who are trained and who are exercising almost every day so that they become fit, who are able to drive those boats if something happens. But how do we do that, small as we are, depending on grants from government? And those grants are being reduced each and every year because the fiscus, even in the national area, is getting lower. So we want to make sure that Port St Johns has its own strength to survive.
But without the basic infrastructure, the most progressive plans in the pipeline to sustainably develop the coastal economy remain just pipe dreams. This, together with the disastrous floods, have made the wild coast susceptible to opportunistic offers by investors, but who are allegedly intent on plunder and profit. Since the late 1990s, the Wild Coast has been targeted for massive development by multinationals. For example, Dutch oil giant Shell was granted the right by the Department of Mineral Resources to conduct seismic blasting of the ocean bed for oil and gas over a period of 6 months, covering 300 kilometers from Port St Johns to Morgan Bay near East London. This despite the global and local outcries.
People, especially our leaders, whenever they talk about these things, they said, no, we will be creating jobs. There was not going to be any job creation because the ship was in the ocean. No one from the local that will be getting any job there. In fact, they will be messing around what we have and then spoiling everything. These guys, they only came to rape our coast.
On the 28th of December 2021, in what has been called the most widespread civil society protest in post-apartheid South Africa, Wild Coast communities and activists worldwide scored a major but temporary victory against the oil giant when the Gqeberha High Court ordered it to stop its exploration immediately.
We don't regard it as success per se, other than we were able to put it on hold because it's a temporal interdict. The real success, it's like if you are in a war, you can win a battle, but it doesn't necessarily mean you've won the war.
Sinigugu Zukulu is an environmentalist at the forefront of promoting not only the blue and green economies, but the rights of indigenous communities to self-determination. On the 30th of May, Shell appeared in court to overturn the interdict. The outcome will have immense repercussions either way.
If we win that, then we will be able to celebrate and say we've won, because the whole war is about how do we protect the ocean for the sustainability of livelihood, of spirituality, of the lives of coastal community.
Our legislation also ensures that communities and people must be consulted before anything which impinges upon their life suddenly gets foisted upon them. This didn't happen.
But not everyone agrees, especially Gqeberha Mantashe, Minister of Mineral and Energy Resources.
Seismic survey is about just testing if there are deposits. If there are, we would love to get them exploration going ahead. It's a poor province. It has a lot of potential. It will take the initiative of people to turn the potential into a real outcome and output.
But rather than rocking the Shell boat, government has been accused of climbing aboard.
It is concerning when you have a ruling party that is unable to respect and to see the importance of the land, of the ocean, to the livelihood and the lives of the people, but instead choose to support the so-called investors, even if that is disregarding the constitutional rights of the people.
When you look at the construction of the various companies, involved in the search for oil. And you look at who the major stakeholders happen to be and their shareholders, and then you trace their origins back to where they are seated in government or in controlling bodies, then the answer is pretty clear.
For now, let's look at what is at stake for the delicate and unique marine ecosystem along the wild coast.
What a seismic survey is it's actually the use of sound to map the ocean bed. So during a seismic survey, you have ships, and towed behind these ships are what are called air guns. Lots and lots and lots, hundreds of air guns. Each of these air guns is sending a pulse of sound, very, very, very loud sound, down through the water. And this sound wave is so strong that it can actually penetrate into the seabed.
Dr. Judy Mann is a marine conservationist who worked with the South African Association for Marine Biological Research. She's now undertaking scientific studies with the Two Oceans Aquarium Education Foundation.
On land, we use sight as our way of navigating. In the ocean, sound is the way animals navigate. It's the way they find their food. It's the way they find their mates. It's absolutely essential because sound travels much more effectively in water than it does on land. So it's almost like creating a smog in the air where you can't really see clearly. We're creating a sound smog in the ocean, which is making it so much more difficult for these animals to find their way around, to navigate, to find their food, to communicate, etc.
Shell has been requested, along with the South African government, has been requested to prove that what they are doing is not going to have an adverse effect on maritime environment. So now how they are going to do it, the Lord alone knows, because before you can do that, you have to quantify what is lying offshore. Now that's never been done.
Any economic activity that is going to degrade the land, the ecosystem, the ocean, which is the source of livelihood for the people, cannot be viewed as a development. Because at the end of it all, it's about who benefits and who is going to suffer, who's going to live with the cost of that.
Millions are in Eastern Cape if we don't look after this environment. But now, once there's an issue about the global warming, deforestation, all these things, they come and affect us directly. We need to keep on educating our kids and brothers that we must look after. Because conservation is not about myself, but we're all conservationists at the end of the day.
Minister Mantashe did not respond to our request for an interview, but Shell has agreed to participate, and in the next episode, we will continue to investigate this crucial issue. Development inevitably comes with a price, but ultimately, what is the cost?